don't go it alone. When I was a gymnast, I was 100% alone in my battle with this mental block. I did not ask for help. I did not ask for what I needed. It was constant coach yelling and me crying and just trying harder. And I just thought if I just try harder, then I will get through it. And what I needed was to communicate. I needed a better way. I needed to know that I wasn't alone in this. You really do need to ask for help if you feel like you need help. Tell a parent you're struggling. Tell a coach that you're struggling. Because if you just try harder, you just hit the wall more times and it makes it feel more impossible. Hey everybody, it's me, Coach Rebecca, and today I'm talking about mental blocks. Shocker, right? I have been on lots of consultation calls in the last couple of days with athletes who are struggling right now. The fall is the time. We call it Nervous November, and that is 2 weeks away at this point when I'm going live here. And I just want to give you guys a lot of suggestions on things you can stop doing. A lot of this is going to go to parents, but athletes too. If you stop doing these certain things, you will get through your mental block much more efficiently. Now, of course, you can download my mental block breakthrough guide, which I'll rattle off that link, but you can also, if you're on Instagram, just comment breakthrough. That's completeperformancecoaching.com/MBB-guide, but you can also DM me and I will make sure that you get that guide. But here's what to stop doing if you want to get through your fear. Okay, number one, this is probably the most common thing that people tell me that they try when they're trying to get through a fear, is that they take a break. So they are working on the skill and they're freezing up and they're freezing up and they're freezing up, and then they just decide, okay, we're done for today. And then they shelf it. And then that same thing happens tomorrow. They try and fail. Okay, we're not doing this anymore. Some parents will say, well, can you just not do it for a while? Or even coaches, we're not even going to work on that for right now. We're not even going to do that event, I've heard, which I'm like, what? So don't do that. Of course, you're right to not freeze up and keep failing over and over. That's also not the way. That's one of the ones I'm going to tell you later. Spoiler alert. But what I want you to do instead is find something you can do that works you toward that skill. So for example, if you're struggling with a back handspring on the high beam and you can't do it on the high beam today because your brain is not having it, don't go work front tumbling. Don't go do your turns. Instead, take the back handspring to somewhere where you can be successful. And what we teach our PerformHappy students is to find that sweet spot where you're stretching your comfort zone and you're successful. Now that sweet spot is a moving target because confidence is so multifaceted in an adolescent. But don't stop working the skill because you're just brushing it under the rug and you're not going to be able to make progress if you're not working on it. So we want you actually working on it, not an unreasonable amount of time. Again, it's kind of like it's an art and it's a little bit nuanced. We want you working on it, but not slamming your head against the wall and also not avoiding it. So you really have to be kind of walking into the flames of fear in order to get through it. Next one. And I hear people who claim to be experts on mental blocks telling people this: trick your brain into going. I hear coaches say this all the time. I hear, athlete mentors who say this. Please do not trick your brain. Here's why. When you are born, you're given this wonderful brain that is supposed to keep you alive and it's supposed to keep you safe. If you touch a hot stove, your brain registers, if I touch that, I'll get burned. So if you walk near a stove, you feel a little afraid. And if a stove is on and you don't realize it and you're reaching toward it, your brain will freeze you before you touch it. Yay, we love that. We love a fear response. I want you to be able to be afraid when something is sketchy, when something's not okay. You actually do need that in order to survive. So we don't want to teach your brain to stop sending you safety signals. That's what happens there is that I see level 9 and 10 gymnasts who come to me who have lost skills on all 4 events, who cannot vault, who can't do back handsprings. I mean, these are people who are Olympic level talent, who can't do any of their skills because they forced their fear response down for so many years that their brain has completely left the building. So instead, you want to listen to it. Fear is just feedback. When you have a fear thought, It's feedback from your brain that says, let's check this out and get more information. So that's another thing that we do in Perform Happy is we make sure that you learn what your brain is telling you, how to listen to it, which then it's like the smoke alarm's going off and you're like, oh, let me go see if there's smoke. Nope, no smoke. Okay, thanks for letting me know. And then you turn it off. We're not just turning it off all the time because something might legitimately be on fire. Another thing that especially like kind of higher level gymnast mentors will recommend is don't think and just go. Or coaches will say, don't think, just go. Again, this is the same issue that you actually do need to be giving your brain a moment to go, hey, what are you telling me? Let me register this, because otherwise your brain's going to get louder and louder and louder. And that is how you start to lose multiple skills on multiple events. The next thing not to do is to use threats or bribes to motivate. Now, I know one level 10 super talented kiddo who had lost her vault, who was literally making bets with people that she would go. She had to have some pressure in order to be able to go. She was trying to motivate herself, basically. Like, if you go, I'll go. That's one that I love. But then when she's like, if I don't go, I owe you $10 or I owe you $5. She was trying to motivate herself. Or if I do go, I get this. Now, I see this all the time with parents. You can't leave the gym until you do it. That's a solid coach kind of bribe situation. Parents, if you do it, I'll give you $100 or I'll give you a pony, whatever that is that you're like trying to increase motivation with. And here's what's really happening. The brain has detected a threat. That is why the athlete is freezing. And then we have a bribe, which is another threat. What if I don't get it? Then we have a threat of if you don't go, you have to climb the rope. There's another threat. So the brain is like, I am feeling even more threatened now, so I'm shutting down. So when a coach uses the motivation tactic of you have to go and you have to do it now, and I know you've done it before, so no, you don't get a spot, you have to go, it just adds more threats and reduces the likelihood that the athlete's actually going to go. Because this is not a motivation issue. I have never met an athlete who has a mental block who's like, I don't really care if I get the skill. Like, they want it. They want to get on with their lives. They love their sport. They want nothing more than to do it. This is not a motivation issue. I cannot repeat that enough. Okay, next one. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. Now, I would even include don't compare yourself to a past version of yourself. All that's going to do is make you feel bad. So if you're here and you just got a boot off your foot and you were out of training for 3 months and your teammates are ahead of you and you're feeling scared, the worst thing to do is to really focus on that gap. Instead, you want to find the gratitude of, oh, thank goodness I'm finally back to training. Let's see what I can do. And then you stay focused on you today and how far you today can go. That is the best focus, is to keep it one day at a time, one rep at a time. Next thing not to do, don't expect to start where you left off yesterday. If you got all the way to the high beam with no mats yesterday, but it took you some warm up and some progressions, then it's safe to assume you need the warm up and progressions again. Now, a lot of the time coaches will say things like, you don't get to warm up because you don't get a warm up in a meet. But if you have a legitimate mental block, your brain is in overprotective mode. And your brain actually needs that warm up. Otherwise, you will have a wasted practice. So a lot of this is efficiency strategy. And I know all coaches like efficiency. And it is way more efficient to start with a progression that's too easy than to go up and try the thing you did yesterday without the warm-up that got you there. Also, you may not be at the confidence that you were at yesterday. A lot of things can happen in 24 hours. So if you don't feel ready, you have to communicate that to your coach. And parents, don't expect your kid to always get back on that same progression where they left off yesterday. It's apples and oranges. You have to take it one day at a time. All right, next one. Don't try to have perfect form while you are working through a mental block, because you can only focus on one thing at a time, maybe two. But if you have fight or flight, alarm bells, smoke detector going off in your brain, and you only just need to think about, get my hands on the beam. And I help athletes their skill and figure out what's the part of it that is the most threatening. And then that is the part that you focus all of your attention on. For a giant, it could be the wrist flick. Back handsprings on beam, it could be your hand position, the connection and your tumbling. There's usually critical moments where you need to be laser focused on that one thing that you need to do in that moment, not how you feel, not any of that. It's just, what do you need to do right there? What happens is that athletes they get their hands on the beam and they go, oh my gosh, my legs were so bent. I'm like, no, we don't care about the legs right now. We can't be perfectionists when you just did a back handspring for the first time in 3 weeks. Can that be enough? So don't try to have perfect form. Also, your brain is going to want to slow you down. So if you are a very powerful tumbler who's working through a tumbling block, your form is going to get sloppy when your brain is afraid. So you have to slow it down, and that's okay. If you're trying to get your arms and legs totally straight, that's actually going to increase the perceived threat in your brain and make it so that you are more scared, because now you're going to tumble faster and your brain's not ready for that yet. I know coaches love to push back on this. Well, if they fix their form, then they wouldn't be so scared. I'm like, no, not in this particular, very specific situation. Good form often makes skills go faster and they are more powerful, which feels more threatening. So start with what you got, focus on that critical moment, and then you can improve as your confidence rises. Okay, Haley says, tips for back handsprings on beam, because when I try to make progress, I feel like I can't swing and go at all because I'm so scared, but I've had it on high beam before. Oh, Haley, that is my exact nemesis in gymnastics, is that skill. And when you swing your arms and you freeze, your brain is telling you, I'm not ready yet. I give you 2 blocks. If you get up and you try one, you freeze. You shake it off, you could take a breath, wipe off your imaginary sweat and fix your ponytail, and then you try one more and you freeze. Time to find a different progression, because your brain is saying, I'm not ready yet. And this might mean that you have to communicate with your coach. This might mean that you have to practice a little self-compassion, be kind to yourself, take that step to whatever progression you can do within about 3 seconds. If you get up and you can't go in 5 seconds, you are forcing it. So you're better off finding a progression where you are still nervous. I can't emphasize that enough. You really do want to be nervous, but not to the point where you freeze. And that, again, is a moving target. So you want to have a strategy to find the right progression, to communicate that to your coach, and to be okay with your process and be, patient with yourself. Okay. Don't focus on too many corrections at once. I just told you, if you're doing hands, do hands. Don't give yourself a hard time about your legs. If you're focusing on legs, great, but then don't give yourself a hard time about your arms or your head position. It's whack-a-mole. And I think perfectionists get so stuck in, I have to get the whole thing perfect on my first try, or I'm going to be mad at myself, which then the negative thinking kicks in, and which is actually one of the biggest things that can get your mental block revved up, is that negative thinking. Okay, Abby is saying, any help for a series mental block? I have had one on the high beam and now I can't go for it on the low beam. I feel like I'm just getting worse. So the negativity is probably part of the situation, but it's normal. This is normal, especially this time of year, because the pressure is rising, the clock is ticking, coaches are being less flexible with their progressions, and they're expecting more of you. And then here you are comparing yourself to your former self, which we already talked about. We don't want to do that. So instead, okay, if you can't go on the low beam, the question is, what can you do? And you don't want to say, I'm getting worse, because that would mean that you're comparing yourself. Instead, you find today, and you go, what can I do? I can do it with a pause in between. I can do it on the floor. I can do it with panel mats stacked all the way up and a Simone beam over the top. There is always a progression that you can do, and that's your starting point. Instead of comparing yourself and thinking about all the things that you can't do, focus on whatever tiny, small, micro progression that you actually can do, and then really rev up your communication with your coach. Okay, Teague says, is there any tips on putting skills on the equipment? I find I can do your Yurchenko timers on high equipment, but I can't even attempt one on the actual vault. Okay, so first, Teague, I'm going to suggest that you say yet at the end of this. I can't even attempt one on the actual vault yet. Because when you say you can't, it's like this decision. I can't do it. That means curtains, show's over, not happening, impossible. Our language has so much power. So even if you just add a yet on the end, I can't even attempt one on the actual vault yet. So instead, I can look at this statement and go, I can do your Yurchenko timers on high equipment. And I can't do it on the actual vault yet, but let me work on the progression that I can do today that makes me uncomfortable, but I'm able to be successful. Now, what I'm talking a lot about today is just the physical part. So that's finding the right progression, making sure that you and your coach are collaborating to figure out what that is for you based on the requirements of, your training group. Then there's the internal stuff, and that's the language we use. That's what we believe. That's what we think about. And that's what, in Perform Happy, we do a lot of just little adjustments in the way that you talk and the way that you think that allows you to feel confident and allows those progressions that you're making to actually land and the confidence actually sticks. Okay, Marissa, you guys have great questions today. Marissa says, any help with the fear of getting hurt? It's my biggest fear. It's taken over a lot. It's made me very superstitious. What if something isn't the way I want, like a mat? I think I'll get hurt. Okay, so superstition is about control. And there's a difference between like a pre-performance routine, which I am all for, and I help kids design those, and a superstition. Now, for example, if it's like, if the mat is not straight, I will get hurt. There is some truth to that. You want to make sure that your board is straight and that everything is exactly where it is to set you up for success. That's within your control. But I've heard girls who, if they don't have their lucky pants in their suitcase, not even ones they wear, but they have to have them in the suitcase or they won't do well. What you're doing is giving control to something outside of yourself, which is going to make your brain feel threatened. Because if your brain thinks that the pants are the reason that you're safe, then it's going to be like, alert, alert, this is not good. The pants. So instead, you want to find out, okay, what is it about the pants that made me successful that day? Maybe I was warm. And when I'm warm, I do better. Learn from the things that work. What is it about the mats being straight that makes me feel safe? And how can I be safe with this situation? Now, this is a situation like if Marissa was my client, what I would have her do is really break down the thoughts. What are the common thoughts? Are they actually true? And I really love to do what I call thought questioning, where you go in and you kind of take apart the thoughts and go, well, is this true? How does it make you feel? How does it make you behave? If you didn't believe this thought, who would you be? If you never had this thought again, what type of athlete would you be able to be? How would you feel? What would happen to your effort? We really kind of dig in to what is this persistent thought pattern and how's it going for you? And I've had athletes go through this process who went from constant injury. I mean, literally constant injury for multiple years and in a totally toxic coaching environment to healthy, change gyms, and it's on track for college scholarship. Like, it's incredible what happens when you take these kind of like habitual thoughts and you pull them out of you and you look at them and you wiggle them around and then you put them back in with like dose of truth and reality. And so you get free from this stuff. So Marissa, A+ for awareness. Okay, the last one, don't go it alone. When I was a gymnast, I was 100% alone in my battle with this mental block. I did not ask for help. I did not ask for what I needed. It was constant, like coach yelling and me crying and just trying harder. And I just thought if I just try harder, then I will get through it. And what I needed was to communicate. I needed a better way. I needed to know that I wasn't alone in this. So if you are feeling alone, hopefully just hanging out with me and listening to the people's questions on a live stream on Instagram can tell you how much you're not alone. The fact that I even have, like, this is my job tells you you are not alone. And you really do need to ask for help if you feel like you need help. Tell a parent you're struggling. Tell a coach that you're struggling. Because if you just try harder, you just hit the wall more times and it makes it feel more impossible. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Again, shoot me a DM. Okay, good. Marissa says I'll send you a DM. Yay. Would love to chat with you. And I will be back again. I'm live Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on Instagram and Facebook. And I will see you again soon. Bye, everybody.